How do you get through change successfully? Whether it's a change of career, job, country, relationship, or maybe you just want to improve your quality of life, have more work-life balance, have more joy in your life, more fun, more space, so you can breathe and enjoy what you have rather than scrambling for more. And I see a lot of people getting stuck in these processes because they're using willpower. So they're trying to keep everything the same, but just somehow get through to the other side through their own brute willpower, rather than setting up the conditions, setting yourself up to naturally flow into the change, and then using your intuition to guide yourself from one step to the next, one step at a time. Instead, what seems to happen is you might have an idea or a vision. It's like, oh, I want to do this. I want to create a business. I want to change my whole life. I want to create a job that works better for me. And it all looks great. And there's new people involved. There's an app involved. There's some kind of speaking to audiences involved. And it's all happening in one go. And the expectation is that somehow you have to make it all happen somehow now through strategy and willpower. And that's hard. It's unrealistic. It's not how change needs to be. The approach I use is a much more intuitive approach, a much more, I don't want to say gentle, because then that puts off everybody who's like, I just want to do the hard work. I know I can do it. So it's not really about gentleness. It's about maybe softness and resilience as you move from one part of the journey to the next. So today I want to talk about 10 things that you can practice to set yourself up for a more natural flow into change, whatever it may be. I work a lot with people who want to change the way they work, maybe change their career or change the way they work, but it can be anything. So number one is have a worldview. Before you set off on a journey of change, choose a worldview. And it doesn't matter if it's a positive worldview of a lovely, benign universe, or if it's a negative worldview of we're just here for survival, once we die, it's all over. It's not necessarily negative, it's just a little less cheerful, maybe, than one where the universe is friendly. But the point is, choose a worldview and commit to it. Einstein said the most important decision we can make is to choose whether the universe is, or to decide whether we're in a friendly universe or a hostile one. But I would say even if you choose a hostile theory, the important thing about the worldview is that it gives you some room for maneuver. It gives you some room when you fall down to give yourself some time to breathe and dust yourself off and get back up again. It's not a crushing worldview where if you fail, that's it, it's over, you're dead. Because it's not true. So at least have a realistic worldview, and a worldview in which you are given some compassion and some support, so that when you're hitting the tough spots in the journey, you have access to something inside you that will give you courage, that will give you motivation to get back up and continue. So have a worldview and commit to it. The opposite would be to just have no worldview at all and just pick up whatever anybody else is saying or whatever you're feeling in the moment about yourself, which can be tricky and can sort of make you flip-flop from side to side, because you have nothing to support you or give you a bigger framework, a bigger context to maneuver. So that's the opposite of not having a worldview, in my view. So number 2 on the journey, tribe or community. So Many high achievers feel they've achieved independently. It's because they're independent and they know how to get stuff done and they know better than most people. And if you just give them a problem, they will solve it and they will get things done. And everybody else is just, most of the time, slowing them down. When you're going on a big journey of transformation, that approach is going to be not helpful, because that is not the truth of the world. We are interdependent. We're in an environment where so many factors influence our lives, our journeys, how things unfold. And yes, there are times where it's just you and your demons, and you have to somehow work through your negative thinking, your limitations, or your limiting thinking, and somehow find it within you entirely to move forward. And yes, it's important to have faith and trust in yourself and what you sense to be true. But it's also important to be able to link up with others who are on the same journey, who support you, and also with circumstances around you and opportunities, and recognize them so you can leap forward rather than just keep scrambling on your own, strategizing in your mind, and trying to figure it all out on your own in your head. So it's important to develop an ability to connect with a community of kindred spirits or like-minded people. And when you choose one, or when you start to create one, it can be one or two people. It doesn't have to be a huge community. If you find a huge community of like-minded people, consider yourself very fortunate. Make sure they support you in what you see to be possible in the future. So not people who reflect where you are now. Not more people who are sort of very individualistic and don't want, believe that you should just do it on your own. That's not, by definition, that's not going to help. But if you're trying to create a business and you work in an organization, hang out with entrepreneurs or people who've created their own business. If you are trying to have more work-life balance, then spend time with people who've created that in their lives in a way that you feel would work for you. Don't hang out with workaholics and try to somehow find the answers. It's not going to work. It might work for you, I don't know, in which case let me know. But evidence and experience shows that it's much healthier, much easier if you connect with people who are thinking along the same lines or who are already there. Which brings me to point number 3, which is have a mentor, a coach, a role model, someone who's further along than you are and who's not going to impose their own agenda. It's very important that they have the skills, the ability, and the desire to just meet you where you are in your journey, in your process, and help you figure out the next step for you, wherever it is that you are. And they don't necessarily have the answers, and you shouldn't expect them to have ready-made answers. You should expect them to help you dig inside you to find your own answers. They can give you information, they can share experience, they can share anecdotes or wisdom from wherever they've acquired it. But those are only tools to help you sense your own answers. So number 4 is having internal boundaries. And these next 2 points are around boundaries. The first ones are internal. So that's you being disciplined, firm, clear with yourself. Let's say once you've made a decision, it's sticking with that decision until you've got evidence not to stick to that decision, or you have a very strong sense that you need to change that decision or make a new decision. There's also internal boundaries with your old tendencies. So if you have a tendency to try to do too much at the same time, or in a short period of time, you have to watch out and have boundaries with that old part of you and say, thank you very much, this is how we used to do things, but not this time. This time I need to learn, and I need to apply what I'm sensing, which is, it might take a longer period of time to achieve everything I want to achieve. It's not a race. This is a much deeper and more important change in my life, and it deserves the time and space that it needs, rather than sort of being pummeled into an imagined timeline of having to do it all by next week. So internal boundaries are boundaries with your old self, your old habits, and your old tendencies. Having someone or a community with you on the journey will help you see these parts of you that show up at inopportune moments, your blind spots, essentially. So that's brings us to the external boundaries, which are boundaries with other people or things. So when you're on a journey or you're in a change process, there will be times of confusion or times of not knowing the answers. You're sort of flying by instruments. You don't really know exactly where you're going to land. You just know to roughly go in that direction. And there may be people who come in, opportunities who come in that try to take you in the direction they want you to go in, because you're probably a highly qualified, highly competent person. People are going to try to draw you into their own agenda. And you're more vulnerable, as it were, because you're not sure exactly where you're going. So it's important to understand that may happen, and that it's important to have external boundaries as well. If you're not sure about an opportunity or what a person is offering you, if it's a job or a relationship or something else, an opportunity of some kind, know that it may not be right for you. And you may be tempted, because the discomfort of not knowing where you're going, of not knowing the answers immediately, or of facing some obstacle, you'll be tempted to relieve that discomfort by just going for this opportunity that's ready-made. And it may have a lot of the things you want, but you'll have a sense that I'm not sure. So give yourself time. And if you don't have time, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no, because as you've probably experienced, if you step into something that you're not quite sure of, I would say 99% of the time, it turns out that there was a very good reason. You weren't aware of the reason, but your intuition was telling you it's not right, and the reason transpired later. So have external boundaries as well in this process of change. Make sure you're very present to those. Which is kind of a practice. So that brings us into number 6. Which is, the next 5 are they're more practices than principles. So faith. Number 6 is faith. Faith isn't, I'm not using it in the religious sense. I'm using it in a broader sense, in a universal sense of just knowing that you know. Knowing that you know. You know what you know. And nobody else can tell you that you don't know that. And it's a little fuzzy because, contorted in the language, because it's difficult to express in language, this sense of knowing, this felt sense that you know something. It's pre-verbal. It hasn't necessarily hit your language center in your left hemisphere. It's still just a sense of knowing that you want this or you don't want that. Coming back to the previous point a little bit. So you might call this intuition, but it's the trusting your intuition. It's knowing that you know, knowing that you know. This is an antidote to confusion and an antidote to doubt. Just saying that you know. So even if you feel confused, it's okay. You can know that you are confused. Just know that you're confused and don't make a story or a judgment out of it, because that creates more confusion. The knowing is not cognitive, it's a felt sense. So that will cut the confusion if you just say, I know that I'm confused, and leave it at that. It's a full stop. And it's best to try it. Next time you're feeling confused, or you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling you have doubt about something, just try it. Say, I know that I'm confused. You might want to add, and that's okay. And see how it feels. Yeah, it's a wonderful experience, so I invite you to try that. It's a practical exercise. It's a practice. Which comes to practice number 6, which is energy. You wouldn't set off on a journey if you were ill, necessarily, right? Ideally, you want to have plenty of energy for the journey. But there are challenges in today's work cultures, because the work cultures can be toxic, and you may feel overworked, overwhelmed, firefighting all the time, reactive all the time, and therefore not have extra energy. And here you can draw on the principles of having boundaries, or starting to set boundaries, because you have an intention to go through change, or to go through on a journey. So you're going to have to gather back your energy, or another way of saying it is that you're plugging the drains where your energy is being sucked, and not in line with your plan to change. So energy is very important, or managing your energy, also cultivating energy, in the sense that, in a very basic way, to sleep, eat, exercise, and look after yourself, so that your body can house the energy you need for the journey. And it's tricky, because you'll be caught between two places: the place that's currently taking your energy, and the place where you want to invest your energy. And so it's important to have faith, to know that you know where you are. You're going on a journey of change. You know that you want to have energy for the journey, and allow yourself to fall into the next step, which is probably saying no to something that you would have previously said yes to. So you can keep your energy, cultivate your energy, and invest it where you want. Which brings us to practice number 7, and that is focus. So it's totally normal to be confused, and it's to be expected that after the confusion, you will reach a point of decision. Something will happen, information will come to you, circumstances will come to you, an opportunity might come along, and then you might make a decision. And then the next bit of the path becomes clearer. You might have to prepare for interviews. You might have to start learning about how to run a business. You might have to prepare for, have an exit strategy from your current job, maintaining good relationships, and looking for opportunities that will dovetail into wherever you're going next. So once that clarity has come, then you need to focus and not get distracted. Again, bringing in boundaries. You've got your focus. You need to practice being focused. And there are lots of different tools and techniques for that. Mindfulness is a great one. And this is real. You can't just focus without some intention to focus and practicing focusing. I mean, that's the whole point of mindfulness, is that you start to be able to focus in the present moment and not get lost in your judgments and your interpretations and your old habitual automatic ways of thinking and behaving. So practicing focus is key, especially once you've got your answers, you've got the path is suddenly unfolding. You need to stay on it, right? I mean, you might have initial enthusiasm, you might feel motivated, but there will be obstacles. Undoubtedly, there will be challenges, and it's easy to then backtrack and say, "Oh, I'm not sure." You know, it's a new path. The first obstacle will be quite tough, and that's where your focus is important, as well as the other principles. They all come together: the faith, the focus, having the energy. And so, practice number 9 is sensitivity or awareness. So rather than trying to figure out answers logically or through doing more research, you can, as you develop the other aspects, the other principles and practices, you'll become more sensitive. And it's important to be aware that that sensitivity is part of your kit for the journey. Being able to sense the context, like an éclaireur, a pathfinder, someone who can feel into what's going on, who can sense challenges, dangers, obstacles, opportunities, is really important, because you don't have the full journey. So you need to know when to shift, when to move your focus in another direction. And that ties in with your intuition. So being able to take in information and sense what's going on around you, being sensitive enough, then feeds into your intuition. So telling you, right, next we're going here, or we need to do that, or we need to say no here. So sensitivity, it's kind of given a bad name in the world, the world that the cultures that dominate in the Western world, at least. But it's actually very useful if you are on a creative, on a transformational, on a change journey. You need that. So nurture that sensitivity to your environment. And finally, wisdom. Wisdom, as I said, all these things come together. As you practice a few, the others strengthen. So your wisdom is going to be the part of you that knows what to do in a particular situation. And it comes with practice. As they say, good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. So you can't really get it wrong. The important thing is to have an intention to make skillful decisions, to experiment, to try, to take a step forward, and to learn every time. And of course, your community, your mentors, your role models will help you figure out the lessons that you need to learn from each step that wasn't necessarily in the right direction for you. Obviously, they're all in the right direction because they're getting you closer to where you want to be, or to how you want to be. And there are lessons that we learn and integrate, and make the journey worthwhile and maybe easier. Right, so those were the 10 things, 10 protective factors to help you dance on the way to wherever you're going. I hope that was helpful. If you want to find out more, you can subscribe to Wise Wednesdays. I send out an email every week. If you're already on it, thank you for being on it. It's great to have you there. I wish you a wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Take care.